The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Golden Dragon Casino in Gangnam District. Felicia adjusted her red cocktail dress, her dark skin gleaming under the crystal chandeliers as she dealt cards to the high rollers at table 7. "Another round, gentlemen?" Her English accent cut through the cigarette smoke. She'd been in Seoul for 3 months, running from debts in London, only to accumulate new ones here. 50 million won. Money she'd borrowed from the wrong people to pay for her mother's surgery back home. The casino floor suddenly went quiet. Felicia looked up. A man in a tailored black suit walked through the room like he owned it, because he did. Kang Yu-seok. Everyone called him the Viper. At 32, he controlled half of Seoul's underground gambling operations and had a reputation for collecting debts in creative, terrifying ways. Their eyes met across the room. His were dark, calculating, beautiful in a dangerous way. A thin scar ran along his jawline, a reminder that he'd clawed his way to the top. "You," he said, stopping at her table. His voice was smooth, with perfect English pronunciation. "Felicia Williams, you're 3 weeks late on your payment." Her heart hammered. "I just need more time, another month." "Time," he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Time is the most expensive commodity I trade in." He gestured to his men. "Take her to my office." His office was all black marble and dark wood, with a view of the glittering Seoul skyline. Felicia stood before his desk, refusing to show fear despite her trembling hands. Yu-seok poured himself whiskey, not offering her any. 50 million won, plus interest, that's 75 million now. "That's insane." "That's business." He circled around her slowly, like a predator. "But I'm a reasonable man. I have a proposition. I'm not sleeping with you for money." He laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face. "You think too highly of yourself." "No, this is something else entirely." He pulled out a photograph of an older Korean man, Park Min-jae. "He runs a rival operation in Itaewon. I need information from his private vault, specifically documents proving his connections to certain politicians." "You want me to rob him?" "I want you to attend his charity gala next week as my companion. Charm him, get close, then get me those documents." He leaned against his desk, studying her. "Do this and your debt disappears. Fail and—" He let the silence finish his sentence. "Why me?" "Because Park has a taste for beautiful foreign women, because you're desperate enough to actually try, and because you speak 5 languages. I've done my research." Felicia's mind raced. "And if I say no?" Yu-seok's expression hardened. "Then I send someone to London. I believe your mother just got out of the hospital." Her blood ran cold. "You bastard." "Yes," he agreed simply. "So, do we have a deal?" She stared at this man who held her life in his hands, hating him and fearing him in equal measure. "Fine, but after this, we're even, completely." He extended his hand. When she took it, his grip was firm and warm. "Deal." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Felicia, don't try to run. I have people everywhere, and I always collect what I'm owed." The week passed in a blur of preparation. Yu-seok sent a team to train Felicia, teaching her how to pick locks, disable basic security systems, and most importantly, how to play the role of a crime boss's girlfriend convincingly. "You need to sell it," Min-so-sek, Yu-seok's right-hand woman, as she helped Felicia into a stunning emerald gown. "Park Min-jae is paranoid. One wrong move and you're both dead." The night of the gala, Yu-seok picked her up in a black Mercedes. When Felicia slid into the car, she caught the brief flash of surprise in his eyes. "You clean up well," he said. "You're not so bad either." It was true. In his midnight blue suit, he looked like he'd stepped off a magazine cover. During the drive to the Shilla Hotel, an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Finally, Yu-seok spoke. "Why did you come to Korea?" "Does it matter?" "I like to know about my investments." "I'm not your investment. I'm your indentured servant." But she sighed. "My mother needed surgery, experimental treatment. The NHS wouldn't cover it. I borrowed money from a loan shark in London. Came here thinking I could make it back quickly. Obviously, that didn't work. And the money you borrowed from me? Went to the first loan shark. I was trying to consolidate my problems. She laughed bitterly. Now I just have different problems. He was quiet for a moment. Your mother, how is she? The question surprised her. Better. The treatment worked. Good. Something in his tone made her look at him differently. Before she could analyze it, they arrived at the hotel. The ballroom was magnificent, all gold and crystal, filled with Seoul's elite criminals pretending to be legitimate businessmen. Park Min-jae spotted them immediately, his weathered face breaking into a politician's smile. Yu-seok, what a surprise! They bowed to each other, respect masking mutual hatred. Park's eyes slid to Felicia. And who is this beautiful creature? This is Felicia, Yu-seok said, his hand possessively on her lower back. The touch sent unexpected electricity through her. My girlfriend. Girlfriend, Park looked delighted. The great viper finally tamed by a woman. Yu-seok pulled Felicia closer, and she played along, leaning into him. Not tamed, she said with a smile, just appreciative of certain qualities. Park laughed loudly. I like her. Come, you must join my table for dinner. As they walked away, Yu-seok leaned down to whisper in her ear, his breath warm against her skin. Well done. Keep him interested. This feels too easy, she whispered back. It's never easy. Stay alert. Dinner was a performance. Felicia laughed at Park's jokes, asked about his business, avoiding anything too specific, and played the role of the smitten girlfriend. Under the table, Yu-seok's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. She told herself it was just for show. But when Park excused himself to greet other guests, Yu-seok didn't let go of her hand. You're a natural, he said quietly, his dark eyes intense. So are you. Is any of this real, or is it just business to you? Something flickered across his face. In my world, everything is business. Real feelings get you killed. That sounds lonely. It's safe. Their eyes held for a long moment. Felicia felt herself leaning closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. Sorry to interrupt, Park returned, slightly drunk. Felicia, my dear, would you honor me with a dance? Yu-seok's jaw tightened, but he released her hand. Of course, enjoy yourself. On the dance floor, Park's hands wandered more than they should have. Felicia endured it, smiling through her discomfort. Your home must be beautiful, she said. I'd love to see it sometime. Perhaps you should leave Yu-seok and come work for me, Park said, his breath reeking of whiskey. I pay better, treat my people better. Tempting, but I'm loyal. Loyalty, Park's expression darkened. That's what'll get you killed, girl. Yu-seok uses people up and throws them away. Remember that. When the song ended, she returned to Yu-seok's side. He stood immediately, his expression unreadable. We're leaving. In the car, tension radiated off him in waves. Did he hurt you? I'm fine. Just some wandering hands. Nothing I couldn't handle. He touched you. It wasn't a question. That was the plan, wasn't it? Get close. Yu-seok's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The plan has changed. We're doing this another way. What? No, I was making progress. I said no. You don't get to do this. We had a deal. He pulled the car over abruptly, turning to face her. The streetlight cast shadows across his beautiful, furious face. You think I'm going to send you back there? Let him touch you again? Since when do you care? I don't, he said, but his voice was rough. I don't want you hurt, all right? The confession hung between them. Felicia's breath caught. Yu-seok. He reached out, his hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness. This is a mistake. What is? Instead of answering, he kissed her. The kiss was nothing like Felicia expected. Yu-seok kissed her like he was drowning and she was air, desperate, consuming, real. Her hands tangled in his hair as his pulled her closer, and for a moment the world outside the car ceased to exist. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. That was, Felicia started. A mistake, Yu-seok finished, but he didn't let go of her. His forehead rested against hers. You should hate me. I'm the reason you're in this mess. I do hate you, she whispered, then kissed him again.
This time it was slower, deeper. His hands traced down her spine, leaving fire in their wake. She'd never felt anything like this dangerous, intoxicating pull towards someone so wrong for her. "Come home with me," he said against her lips. "Yu-seok, not for that, just come home with me."
His penthouse was minimalist and cold, all sharp edges and expensive emptiness. But when he poured them both whiskey and sat beside her on the leather couch, something in him seemed to soften. "Why did you really pull me out of there?" Felicia asked. Yu-seok was quiet for a long time. "When I was 17, my sister needed money, medical treatment, like your mother. I was nobody then, just a kid from Busan trying to survive in Seoul. I borrowed money from a man like Park. When I couldn't pay, he sold her to a trafficking ring. By the time I found her, she was already gone. Overdose." Felicia's heart ached. "Yu-seok, I'm so sorry. I built this empire on her grave. Every person I've hurt, every debt I've collected, it's all so I'd never be powerless like that again." He looked at her, and she saw real pain in his eyes. "When I saw Park touching you, looking at you like you were something he could buy, I couldn't. I just couldn't." She took his hand, this dangerous man who suddenly seemed heartbreakingly human. "What happened to your sister wasn't your fault, wasn't it? I borrowed the money. I made the deal. You were a kid trying to save someone you loved. That's not the same as the choices you've made since. Maybe." He turned her hand over, tracing the lines of her palm. "Tell me something true, Felicia. Something real. I'm terrified of you, but I'm also drawn to you in a way that makes no sense. And right now, I don't know which feeling to trust." "Trust the fear. It'll keep you alive." But when he kissed her again, gentle this time, she stopped trusting anything at all. They spent the night talking, really talking, about London and Busan, about the choices that led them here, about the people they used to be before life forced them to become something harder. As dawn broke over Seoul, Felicia realized she'd been wrong about Yu-seok. He wasn't just a monster. He was a man who'd made monstrous choices, and somewhere inside him, the person he used to be was still screaming, "I should go," though she didn't want to. "Stay." His arms tightened around her, just until the sun's fully up. So she stayed, curled against him on the couch, both of them pretending this moment could last forever. The next week, everything changed. Felicia moved into Yu-seok's penthouse, officially for protection, but really because neither of them wanted to be apart. They fell into a strange domesticity, her cooking Nigerian food that made him cry from the pepper, him teaching her Korean phrases, both of them stealing kisses between his business calls. But the Park Min-jae problem remained. "We need a new plan," Yu-seok said on evening, studying blueprints of Park's compound. "Or you could just admit you're in love with her and find another way to take Park down," Min-so said, walking in with coffee. Yu-seok glared at her, but didn't deny it. Felicia's heart skipped. "Wait, what?" "Oh, please," Min-so rolled her eyes. "You two aren't subtle. The whole organization is taking bets on when he'll propose." "Min-so," Yu-seok warned, "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, boss." After she left, an awkward silence filled the room. Finally, Yu-seok spoke. "She's not wrong about my feelings." Felicia's breath caught. "Yu-seok, I know it's insane. We've known each other 2 weeks. You're supposed to hate me. I'm supposed to be using you." He stood, pacing. "But I can't stop thinking about you. When you're not here, I'm counting down until you return. When you are here, I'm memorizing everything about you because I'm terrified it won't last. So maybe I'm in love with you, or maybe I'm just losing my mind." She crossed the room to him, taking his face in her hands. "For what it's worth, I think I'm losing my mind too." When they kissed this time, it wasn't gentle. It was hungry, desperate, full of all the feelings they'd been holding back. He lifted her onto his desk, documents scattering, her legs wrapping around his waist. "Tell me to stop," he breathed against her neck. "Don't you dare stop." The next morning brought a harsh awakening. Felicia woke to find Yu-seok already dressed, his expression grim as he stared at his phone. "What's wrong?" "Park knows. About us. About the plan. Everything." He showed her a message. "Nice try, Viper. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? The girl's pretty, but not that pretty. Tell her I'll see her soon." Felicia's blood ran cold. How did he find out? Either we have a leak, or... Yu-seok's eyes hardened. Or this was a setup from the beginning. "You think I betrayed you?" She couldn't believe it. After everything. "No." He pulled her close. "No, I don't. But someone in my organization did, and now we're both targets." Min-so burst in without knocking. "Boss, we have a problem. Park's men are outside the building, at least 20 of them." Yu-seok moved immediately, pulling a gun from his desk drawer and handing Felicia a smaller one. "Do you know how to use this?" "Point and shoot?" "Close enough." He turned to Min-so. "Execute Contingent 7. Get everyone to the safe houses." "What about you?" "I'm getting her out of here." The next hour was chaos. They fled through underground tunnels Yu-seok had built for emergencies, the sounds of gunfire echoing behind them. He held her hand the entire time, never letting go even when they had to run. They emerged in an abandoned warehouse in Hongdae. Yu-seok immediately made calls, his voice cold and commanding, the crime boss, not the man who'd held her so gently the night before. "We're going to my safe house in Jeju Island," he said after hanging up, "just until I can figure out who betrayed us. Or you could just surrender," a familiar voice said from the shadows. Park Min-jae stepped into the light, flanked by armed men. But worse, much worse, Min-so stood beside him. "Min-so?" Yu-seok's voice was deadly quiet. "You?" "I'm sorry, boss." But she didn't look sorry. "Park's been paying me for years. You were just too blind to see it." "Why?" he asked. "Because you're weak now. Look at you, ready to throw everything away for some girl you barely know. The old Yu-seok would never have let feelings compromise the operation." The old Yu-seok was dead inside. Maybe being weak is better than being empty. Park laughed. "How touching. Now, here's how this will work. You give me your entire operation, all your territory, and I let the girl live. Refuse, and I kill her in front of you, slowly." Felicia saw Yu-seok's internal battle, his empire or her life. She couldn't let him choose. "No," she said, raising her gun at Park. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. "Here's how this actually works. You let us both walk out of here, or I put a bullet in you right now. I might die, but so will you." "You don't have the spine," Park sneered. "Try me." The standoff stretched for an eternity. Then Yu-seok started laughing, a real, genuine laugh that filled the warehouse. "What's so funny?" Park demanded. "I just realized something," Yu-seok said, still smiling. "I spent 10 years building an empire because I was afraid of being powerless. But right now, with a gun to my head and everything falling apart, I'm not afraid. Because she's here. And suddenly, all of this, the money, the power, the territory, it doesn't mean anything compared to that." He turned to Felicia. "I love you. I know it's crazy and we barely know each other, but I love you, and I'm sorry I dragged you into this mess." "I love you too," she said, tears streaming down her face, "and we're getting out of this mess together." "How touching," Min-so said, "but also irrelevant. Kill them both."
What happened next was pure chaos. Yu-seok moved first, shooting the lights out and plunging the warehouse into darkness. Felicia felt him hand grab hers, pulling her behind cover as gunfire erupted. They returned fire blindly, the muzzle flashes creating a strobe effect. There's a door behind us. On 3, we run. Ready? Ready. 1, 2. But before he could say 3, Min-so's voice cut through. I have a shot on the girl. Yu-seok didn't hesitate. He stepped in front of Felicia just as the gun went off. No, Felicia screamed as he crumpled. Time seemed to slow. She caught him, his blood warm and sticky on her hands. Around them, sirens wild, police finally arriving, Park's men scattered. You idiot, she sobbed, pressing her hands to his chest wound. You stupid, heroic idiot. Yu-seok smiled weakly. Couldn't let her shoot you. Stay with me, please stay with me. Best 2 weeks of my life, he whispered. Then his eyes closed. 6 months later, Felicia stood on the balcony of a small apartment in Busan, watching the sun set over the ocean. Behind her, she heard the door open. You're supposed to be resting, she said without turning around. I've been resting for 6 months. I'm tired of resting. She turned to see him.
Still moving carefully because of the chest wound that had nearly killed him, the bullet had missed his heart by millimeters. A miracle, the doctors said. She called it luck. He called it destiny. Everything had changed that night. The police raid had caught most of Park's organization, including Min-seo. Park himself had escaped, but was arrested weeks later trying to flee to China. With his empire crumbling, Yu-seok had made a choice. He testified against everyone, dismantling the entire Seoul underground in exchange for immunity. They'd moved to Busan to start over. No more Golden Dragon Casino, no more Viper, just Yu-seok and Felicia, trying to figure out what a normal life looked like. It was harder than fighting crime lords. My mother called, Felicia said as he wrapped his arms around her from behind. She wants to visit next month. Good. I want to meet the woman who raised someone brave enough to point a gun at Park Min-jae. I was terrified. You were magnificent. He kissed her neck. Have I mentioned that I love you today? Only 3 times, you're slacking. He turned her to face him, his expression serious. I know this isn't the life you imagined. No glamour, no excitement. Just a former crime boss and his girlfriend running a small restaurant. Partners, she corrected. We're partners, in the restaurant and in life. She touched his face gently. And this is exactly the life I want. No one shooting at us, no deaths, no betrayals, just us building something real together. I have something for you. He pulled out a small box. Felicia's heart raced. Yu-seok, before you panic, it's not a ring. Not yet. I want to do this properly. Court you, take you on dates, prove I'm more than just the criminal who threatened your mother. You've already proven that. Still, he opened the box to reveal a delicate necklace with a small serpent pendant. My sister made this before she died. I want you to have it. Tears filled Felicia's eyes. I can't. It's too precious. You're too precious. She would have loved you. He fastened it around her neck. There, now you're stuck with me. Like I'd want to be anywhere else. They kissed as the sun set, the ocean breeze carrying the smell of salt and possibility. Below them, Busan hummed with life, their new life, full of promise and second chances. That night, as they lay tangled together in bed, Felicia thought about the strange journey that had brought them here. A debt that became a heist, that became a love story. Most fairy tales didn't start with crime and gunfire, but then again, most fairy tales didn't end with a reformed crime boss learning to make kimchi while his girlfriend taught English to neighborhood kids. What are you thinking about? Yu-seok asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. How weird our story is. How we shouldn't work, but somehow we do. "The best things never make sense," he said. "I spent years making logical decisions, strategic moves. None of them made me happy. Then you showed up and ruined all my plans, and suddenly I had a reason to want more than power. No regrets? Only one, that I threatened your mother. That was inexcusable. You apologized. She forgave you. I forgave you. But can I ask you something? Anything. When did you know? When did you realize you loved me?" Yu-seok was quiet for a moment, thinking. "That first night in the car after the gala, you asked if anything was real or if it was all business. And I realized I wanted something to be real. I wanted you to be real." He smiled. "What about you? When you stepped in front of that bullet? Actually, no. Before that, when you started laughing in the warehouse like none of it mattered anymore, that's when I knew you were the one. Even though I'm a former crime boss with a lot of enemies, especially because of that, life with you will never be boring. I promise you boring, safe, and predictable from now on." Liar. Maybe a little. 3 months later, the restaurant was called New Beginning, Seoul Yishijak, and it was packed every night. Yu-seok turned out to have a talent for cooking Korean-Nigerian fusion cuisine. His kimchi jjigae with palm oil base was already legendary in Busan. Felicia ran the front of house, her natural charm bringing in customers, and her 5 languages helping with the growing tourist trade. They were washing dishes together one night after closing when Yu-seok suddenly got down on his knee. "What are you doing?" Felicia laughed. "The floor's wet, you'll slip." "Felicia Williams," he interrupted, pulling out a ring. "I was going to do this somewhere romantic, take you to a nice restaurant, make a speech. But then I realized this is our romance, washing dishes together, building something together, fighting for each other." "Yu-seok, you took a mess of a man and gave me a reason to be better. You stood up to crime bosses for me. You held my hand while I testified against everything I'd built. You believed I could be more than the Viper." His voice cracked. "Will you marry me?" Felicia dropped to her knees in the soapy water, cupping his face. "Yes, 1,000 yes." When they kissed, both of them kneeling on the wet restaurant floor, Felicia thought about how far they'd come. From that first night at the Golden Dragon Casino to this moment, it had been the craziest, most dangerous, most beautiful journey of her life. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you more." "Impossible. Want to bet?" They laughed, holding each other as the neon signs of Busan flickered outside their window. 2 broken people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk into the light together. Their story hadn't been easy, it hadn't been simple, but it had been theirs, and that was enough. 1 year later, Felicia stood in a simple white dress, holding a bouquet of wildflowers as Yu-seok waited for her at the altar. His mother was there, crying happy tears. Felicia's mother sat in the front row, beaming. Min-seo was in prison. Park was serving 20 years, and they were free. "Do you take this man?" the officiant began. Felicia looked at Yu-seok, this man who'd started as her captor and become her savior, her partner, her love. His eyes shone with tears as he mouthed, "I love you." "I do," she said firmly. "And do you take this woman?" "I do," Yu-seok said, before the officiant could finish. "I absolutely do." They kissed as husband and wife, and outside the small church, rain began to fall, just like it had that first night at the casino. But this time, instead of running from the storm, they danced in it. Their restaurant thrived. They adopted a dog named Lucky. They had arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes, and made up with kisses that led to more. They visited London, and Yu-seok charmed Felicia's entire family. They went to his sister's grave and promised her they'd live enough life for both of them. It wasn't perfect. Some of Yu-seok's old enemies still occasionally caused trouble. Felicia sometimes woke up from nightmares about that night in the warehouse. Both of them carried scars, physical and emotional, that would never fully fade.
But they carried them together, and in the end, that's all that mattered.